Check, check. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to the session today. I know all of you are brave souls because it's day one, it's the end of the day, and I can appreciate you've been in session since morning. So thank you very much, and welcome to this session, Enabling Cloud Chargebacks. For those of you from the industry who've worked in the industry, whether it's telecommunications, IT, or any related function, you probably are more aware of the fact that IT is looked upon as a cost center, first of all. The second thing, IT is unable to granularize the costs that it incurs to support departments. So supporting the accounting department, supporting the development department, supporting thousands and thousands of end users. It's a huge challenge today for everybody to really find out what is it costing them to run a department, to run an organization. And that's what this topic is all about. Cloud, as we all know, is gaining adoption, and it's becoming the greatest thing ever. So there's definitely a huge connection of the cloud with IT chargebacks, and there are mechanisms and methods and procedures that we can use in order to make that happen. Today's session is not a vendor pitch. Today's session is more about thoughts and ideas, and really just to find out and investigate what kind of mechanisms can we have, what are the challenges the industry faces. So I'm going to be a quick 30 minutes. I'll make sure it's painless, and we'll take it from there. First of all, before we even get started, any of you actively involved in finding the ROI that's coming out from IT? Is any of you facing the pain with chargebacks? So we have at least one person. What industry are you from, sir? So from telecommunications. Anybody else from the back here? Yourself?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing, and you're looking for chargebacks within IT. Anybody from this side? All right, no worries at all. But we have two major industries, telecom as well as manufacturing, that have this need and that have identified this need. So first of all, what makes the cloud cloud? I'm going to talk about both cloud as well as a few other related concepts, just because it's all within the same bucket. So in order to have something called the cloud, there's absolutely got to be these 5 things. The first is elasticity. You've got to be able to expand it, retract it. It needs to react to your needs, and it needs to be flexible. Ubiquitous access, that is a must for those of you who are using the cloud, who are embarking on the cloud. And I'm just touching on a very basic concept to start off with. Self-service is something that is growing in adoption, it's growing in demand. Shared resources and metered services. So this is what forms the cloud. This is what cloud is all about. In case you've got a couple of them missing or not available, you still have a cloud, but it's not an ideal cloud. So it definitely needs some improvement. A cloud, for example, without shared resources would be something on a server in some dark room, shared by nobody. So we've got to look at it from a very kind of a thought leadership perspective as well. My clicker is not working. Oh, now it is. So moving from the cloud, the question of chargeback, why would I need chargeback in the first place? Now there's a lot of discussion about public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and without going into the details of what they are, let me just tell you a little bit more about why do people need chargeback in a typical situation. In terms of private cloud, we're seeing that people and companies and organizations need a lot more chargeback within the private cloud. Yes, in public cloud, it's not needed, but why do they need it in a private cloud situation? It's because the economics of the private cloud usage are different from that of the public cloud. On a private cloud, you're sharing resources, you're enabling services within an ecosystem that's contained. And you could have a company or an organization that's serving 100,000 employees or 50,000 employees, managing the resources that are allocated to them and finding out who is consuming what part of IT becomes a key driver when you talk about business profitability. And in the end, it all goes to business profitability. It all goes down to the quality of the organization that you're running. Chargebacks are also used as a base for accounting in protecting your investments. So chargeback has a huge relationship, and as we can learn probably from the telecom industry as well, is, as an example, in the telecommunications industry, chargebacks are very important because every cent, every dollar, and every MB of data is important. So you've got to be able to track not just your big resources that we used to do in the past, tracking servers, but now we have the need of tracking how much bandwidth is every user using, how much hard drive or storage space is every user within my enterprise using. And it becomes very, very granular. When you talk about scale, you need to track everything. And chargeback is able to enable complex billing mechanisms on the cloud. And when we talk about cloud, there's a lot of talk about cloud billing and cloud monetization. These are buzzwords that we've heard. But in order to build a service, you've got to be able to know what are you going to build. You can't just build things in bulk. And there's a few different models of billing on the cloud. But the most realistic one, the one that really squeezes the dollar out of every ounce of consumption, is based on the concept of chargeback, where you can charge for every small minuscule thing. And it's not about charging your customers for everything, but it's about providing value. It's about giving them value, and it's about reaping value from that as well. We are aware of a few great vendors who absolutely we use them in so many different ways, and we know they've got some kind of granularity in their cloud mechanisms when it comes to billing. For example, Amazon AWS EC2 has definitely got a lot of granularity built into the billing aspect, but unfortunately it lacks that billing when it comes to tracking every single megabyte of data that's used. Let's consider the example that you're a provider who hosts or has 10,000 customers hosted on AWS. In order to really charge all those customers on every virtual machine that they use, every database they use, every transaction they use, you're unable to do that. Yes, you'll get a huge list of items that you use from Amazon, but you're unable to break that down into smaller pieces that you can say, well, customer A used X amount of storage, Y amount of server space, and so on. You're unable to do that. And that's the challenge that's common between every single organization that's facing the chargeback problem. Similarly, with Azure, VMware has an aspect of it, but it's not granular enough. And that's the challenge. Yes, chargebacks exist, but it's not granular enough to unlock a tremendous amount of value. And again, why should we use chargeback and how should we use chargeback? It's essentially to do three different things. It's to track cloud usage. If you're an enterprise with 100,000 users or 5,000 users, or you're an organization serving 2,000 customers, or any of those, you need to find out what is the usage of my cloud. Because you've probably made a huge investment in your infrastructure. And in order to unlock that value, you want to know who is using what aspect of it. And that's on the, you could say, on the software side. And again, on the infrastructure side, if you're a data center, you've got to need to find out who is using what resources on your data center, because you want to be able to charge for those services. And you could be doing services, you could be doing a lot of time and talent, providing services to customers, and you want to be able to track every single minute that your developer spends or your project manager spends on a project. So there's various needs for chargeback within the industry. And the problem is that, as the slide says, the true cost of private cloud cycles and services is not readily apparent. That is the core of the problem. We don't know. We don't know how much does it cost us. We don't know how much should it cost our customer. And I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that. We're unable to break it down into slices that are as minuscule as they get. And that's the problem. It's running blind with your eyes closed. If you're managing an IT organization, I love this slide, you are running a business. You literally are. Developing a pricing strategy for IT services requires a non-traditional approach to financial management. So for those of you who are invested as within the business side of things, you know how hard and how difficult it can get to run a business when you don't know the financials. You've absolutely got to know your financial. What is coming in? What is going out? What is your cost? What is your margin? These are just basics. And similar to running a business is running an IT department. And we're talking about an average small, medium, large, or an enterprise-sized company that has tremendous amounts of investments and resources installed to manage. And for the IT director, for the CIO, for the CTO, it's a challenge to be able to effectively manage every aspect within the IT department. And that's why we need chargebacks. These are the guys who are begging for a granular chargeback strategy. But in order to enable chargebacks, we've got to look at the aspect of cloud as well. So if cloud is able to enable chargebacks, why aren't we just enabling it? What's the problem? Maybe the problem is the adoption to the cloud. And this is a slide that I pulled from a KPMG survey that they did, is about the percentages of what people feel as a roadblock to moving to the cloud. Some of these are very typical. 33% feel the integration costs are too high, transparency of operation controls, data loss, privacy risks, almost 30%, loss of control, 30%. And these are problems that organizations are facing with even enabling a cloud-based chargeback strategy. The reason why they're not enabling it, because